Well, I want to open by offering my very deepest sympathy to everybody in Ireland's mainstream media today, Sunday, the 7th of March 2021. It's now 7 p.m. I got today's Sunday papers. They're the only mainstream media newspapers that I really condescend to read these days because they do give you a summation of what's happened in the week before. What's interesting is to see the reuse of photographs by Rocket Man in Grafton Street, and how horrific. The Women's Aid Ireland described the scenes in Grafton Street as horrific. Horrific, like Srebrenica, maybe. They're putting it in that kind of category, or, Hiroshima, or the fall of Nanking, those kind of things. No, horrific it was that a man set off a rocket in Grafton Street. Then there is this dislocation in their heads where they wonder why they don't get taken seriously. But anyway, there is a collective nervous breakdown taking place today in the Sunday papers, and it is, for me, a joy to behold, because what I'm seeing in the Sunday newspapers with one particular journalist is that they are the rats deserting the sinking ship. I said this day last week, and that's true. So there was a protest yesterday in Cork, and a few hundred people showed up for it despite all of the restrictions on getting there. They actually did show up. And there was a protest about the lockdown and a protest about our freedom. And what I noticed is that I think it was the Sunday Independent, being the Sunday Independent, they went in and got quotations. They quote mined. This is called quote mining. It's a subset of cherry picking. They quoted from people who, shall we say, would not be particularly sympathetically responded to by the normies. That's deliberate, and that is how low they're going, and that is how desperate they are now. But even the Sunday Independent and the Sunday Times and the bits of the Irish Times that I see online all have to quote something, and they have all been saying the following: that the protest in Cork passed off without incident. The disappointment is almost physically dripping off the pages of today's Sunday papers. The disappointment is dripping off the pages of it. Now, I had a cup of coffee and read through the Sunday papers today, and I saw something in a smaller article. Thomas has said this. They put the stuff in smaller articles that I think people need to start focusing on. This is called the Land Development Agency. This is yet another NGO, if we use it in its broadest term, because NGO actually doesn't have a particularly legally significant meaning, but it means broadly those charities or other organisations that do governmental work, that operate in effect on behalf of the state, but at the same time they're not state agencies. They're not like CIE, they're not like RTE, they're not like the Department of Health or that kind of thing. The Land Development Agency has been set up to deal with our housing crisis. This is yet another trick of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil and the neoliberals. This is a trick. A trick they came out with in 2016 was the fast-track planning laws, whereby a builder who wants to build, say, more than 100 homes in any particular development doesn't have to apply to a local authority, but he has to apply directly only to An Bord Pleanála. I'm challenging that. There you go. So let's talk about taking constitutional challenges. I'm taking a constitutional challenge of that. And I have the standing to do it because I brought a judicial review into such developments in Howth. I was given leave to bring it. I technically, on the flimsiest of technicalities, won one of the judicial reviews, and I lost the other one. But ironically, having lost the second judicial review, that means that we move on to the next step of challenging constitutionality because, and this is Gemma and John's, where it went wrong for Gemma and John, you cannot use a judicial review procedure to challenge constitutionality. The constitutional bit comes afterwards. Having lost the judicial review in the planning matter in Howth, I now have the right to challenge the statute in which that planning matter arose. So this is how it works. Fine Gael being Fine Gael, brought in these laws in 2016 to allow builders to bypass a local authority and make their planning application to An Bord Pleanála. I won't say that that's just a rubber stamping process. That would be indecorous of me, but you can figure it out for yourself. So that is one neoliberal example, a classic example of colourable neoliberal law designed to basically make an inside circle get rich. This Land Development Agency, well, there are a number of specific questions that should be asked about the Land Development Agency. It's the same question that should be asked about Irish Water. It's the same question that should be asked about Tusla. Are these private limited companies? In Ireland, we have LTD Limited. We also have CLG, Company Limited by Guarantee. And we also have DAC, Designated Activity Company. Those are different labels put on to confuse. I never saw what was wrong with the two labels, limited or unlimited. Never saw what was wrong with that. But now we have all of these new labels. But they don't change the fabric and structure of the entity they refer to. These are private companies. So a question I'm going to ask my local TDs is this. Is the Land Development Agency a private company? Is Irish Water a private company? And is Tusla a private company? Does it have those handles after it? CLG, DAC, LTD? And if it is, then if this Land Development Agency, if it's been blown up by Fine Gael politicians and being told, we're being told how great it is by Fine Gael politicians, immediately you have to start digging. This is investigative journalism, by the way. That's what investigating is about. Don't expect the bros in RTE to do that. They won't. They probably don't even understand the concepts. As an aside, I saw online a clip from Today Tonight of 1990. And it was a different world, that television station. It was RTE when it actually made some effort to produce quality investigative journalism. Today Tonight, the tone of it, there wasn't all background music all the time, ironic background music about Karen and Diarmid and their house renovation somewhere in Cork. No, it wasn't any of that. There was no background music. The graphics were simple and clear and legible. It was probably at a time when RTE was at its height. It was from 1990, Today Tonight, and it was talking about, would you guess, it was talking about a housing shortage. But I digress. I don't believe that there is the intellect in RTE now to even begin to think about the relevance of asking these questions. What is this Land Development Agency and what is its long-term agenda, or what in the long term shall it be allowed to do? So while it may not have stated an agenda at this particular stage, does that Land Development Agency exist as a private company? And if so, does it have the right then to sell on all of this land to another buyer? To my mind, the answer to all of those is probably, although I haven't checked, probably yes. So what we're talking about here is that spare state land, railway stations, airport runways, old factories, goods depots at railway stations in the country, all of these various different pieces of state land are going to be given to private commercial interests, and you can bet your life that the state will sell it at a whistle. And now is the time when we have to start harrying them about that, and I mean harrying them. So, beneath all the hysteria about the far-right protest in Cork that never was, there was a good article actually in today's Sunday Independent by Shane Coleman. Now, this could be the controlled opposition thing, where they're saying, well, we have to provide balance. Shane Coleman, though his article on the face of it is accurate, he says there is no far-right. Yes, we could have told you that. There is no far-right. Colette, what's her name? Colette Catlady and some other thing said, is there even a far left in Ireland? And, guffaws of laughter on social media at that. But it's much more difficult to ascertain the existence of a far right in Ireland. So this is why they've set up yet another NGO giving people €44,000 a year to go and find, to go and do this wild goose chase about a Scarlet Pimpernel. The philosophical term, the cat in the dark room. They're looking for the far right here. No, they're going to be paid €44,000 a year to look for something that doesn't exist. But that's Ireland's NGOs for you. It's not just because it's tolerated. It's because The mainstream media will not talk about the NGOs. They will not talk about that. Another thing that they will not talk about, but isn't going away, and we succeeded out here in Altland, is the RTE hoolie. Because the RTE hoolie proves that the whole thing is a lie. You know, they're the people who are scaremongering about this thing. They're the ones who should have their fingers on the pulse of the news, and instead they're having a maskless contact-containing party in Montrose. Figure it out. And it's not going away because we've hammered at it out here. We're doing the job that the mainstream media is refusing to do. Why are they refusing to do it? Because even in Virgin Media and these other places, the holy grail for them, the golden chalice is to get that permanent job in Montrose. Well, sorry guys, it's not going to happen. Keelan Shanley got it when she was about 25. She got it because she was part of that circle. They're the ones who get the permanent jobs in Montrose. Owen McDermott, all of those ones. Let's talk about RTE for a second. An individual has suddenly vanished off the radar from RTE and has walked out of his job. I'm not saying anything that's controversial, that's just the fact. The whys and wherefores of why this person has walked out of his job is the subject of much speculation, but I will not speculate on this forum. But it's interesting to see that there is no sympathy. I do not in itself. That proves from a legal point of view and from an evidential point of view, that proves nothing. Except that he wasn't very well liked by the public. I will accept that. From the point of view of it indicting this person or suggesting that this person is guilty, no, it doesn't. It doesn't imply anything from the point of view of criminal guilt or even civil guilt. But what it goes to show is that this individual, who we were told by Montrose for years was absolutely totes hilaire, hilaire bags, totes hilaire he was, like Amy Huberman's comedy, which doesn't exist as well. Amy Huberman's comedy is like the Irish far right. Neither of them exists and you can't find it anywhere. We're told about it all the time, but it doesn't exist. This individual, though, has gone from RTE and nobody has any sympathy. And this is the Ryan Tubridy, Leo Varadkar thing. These individuals are put into a position. The talented, intelligent people are always frozen out. Always. And then the spin is done by Montrose and by their pals in the Irish Times and elsewhere. Oh, he's so talented. And it's like, totes hilaire. Oh, he's a ledge. He's a ledge bag. He's a ledge bag. And this particular individual who's just vanished off the scene in Montrose did have an awful lot of tweets, you can see them, in which he described himself as a male feminist. And, he also he beat up on Trump, because that's so edgy, isn't it? Just beating up on Trump. That is, the edge. Just to, we're at the cutting edge of satire here when you beat up on Trump. Orange man bad. And again, it's like Tubridy, it's like Amy Huberman, it's like Varadkar. Nobody likes them. They're not talented, they're not intelligent, they're not funny. Nobody likes them. But they're part of that set that gets in. And then when you see that this person now has left RTE, there's no sympathy. Nobody's even saying anything. You'd think they'd all be closing ranks in Montrose and saying, hey, we wish you the best of luck, and hey, however your career furthers on, we wish you the very best. No, it's saying nothing. When Brendan Grace died, everybody in the Liberty stood out for his coffin. I put up a thing on Facebook. I don't remember the meme exactly, but the words were to the effect of, goodbye, Brendan, farewell, and thank you for everything. People love Brendan Grace. And Daniel O'Donnell, although he hasn't died. People love Daniel O'Donnell. Because they're genuine and there's talent. There was talent with Brendan. Brendan Grace had oodles of talent. Brendan Grace is great. Daniel O'Donnell is great as well, in a different way, and it's not particularly to my taste, but I appreciate that Daniel has a huge following upon people who think he is great. And I will objectively say that as a live performer, yes, Daniel O'Donnell is very talented and experienced and competent, like Brendan Grace. They were both the kind of people, you give them a guitar or piano, they start. That's an Irish party thing, really. Give them a guitar and piano, they start. They do it on an amazingly big stage, or they do it in a bar. But the crowd who are getting into Montrose and have been getting in for the past 35 to 40 years are not like that. So this person who has now just suddenly quit for Montrose is a smug, woke cock. And nobody really liked him anyway. Nobody really liked him anyway. And it's striking to see how little sympathy there is for that smug, woke, patronising, arrogant cock. And look at the rubbish he puts on Twitter. The gaslighting. The smug stuff that's still up on his Twitter. Yeah, great. Cool, bruh. Wear a mask, bruh. Let's focus back on the Land Development Agency and two other similar entities, Irish Water and TUSLA. I have personally tried to get out of TUSLA the nature of the corporate structure that TUSLA is. Is it a CLG, DAC, ULC, LTD? What is it, TUSLA? And they won't say, and it's not even on their website. You ring them, and sure, you might as well be talking Greek backwards. Now, I have to confess, I didn't pursue the matter as much as I could have or should have, because, you know, other things happen, like having to stop the builders from destroying my neighbourhood, that kind of thing. But at the same time, it piqued me that this organisation, which has vast investigative power and vast authority to blacklist people, and has done so erroneously by its own admission, now appears to be a private company. Is it? Well, I don't know. And that's what we need to find out. We need to protect children, of course we do. But I think the Department of Health, in accordance with the Gardaí, would be more than competent to do that. So, you know, when there's a concern about a child being neglected or abused physically or abused emotionally, abused sexually, that needs to be responded to. Of course it does. But it needs to be responded to in a way that is efficient and honest, and that also, by the way, respects the right of people who've been accused to the protection of their good name until they are convicted in court. It's called the presumption of innocence. No. That's not happening either. TUSLA has blacklisted people and has retained faulty information that was, at the time that they retained it, they knew was faulty, but they still retained it, about innocent people. Then, okay, right, what is this organisation, TUSLA? Now, let's talk about Irish Water. Irish Water, nobody would dispute that Irish Water is a private company. Is it a CLG Limited? Is it a PLC, Public Limited Company? Floated in a stock exchange. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but we can accept that Irish Water is a private company. So this private company was put in charge of managing all of Ireland's water. And now we're getting into something else. We're getting into my favourite old bugbear, the Freemen. Because when Irish Water came on the horizon in 2014, immediately the Freemen's Party, Direct Democracy Ireland, which is based in a security guard's hut in the disused asbestos factory in the outskirts of Drogheda, Direct Democracy Ireland started telling people to take their bills and their notices and their packages from Irish Water and send them back marked no consent, no contract, return to sender, I do not have an international treaty with you, whatever. That, of course, was the wrong thing to do. The right thing to do was to burn them. Because nobody can prove you've got it. Burn it. You send it back, they know you've got it. So when Direct Democracy Ireland was inciting people basically to admit the fact that they'd been served with notices by them, that's what they were doing. I spoke out against it then, and I encountered the worst wave of cretins that I have ever encountered. This was eye-opening and a very important process for me to go through. These are all learning processes. Yes, it was a learning process. It was a process, and I'll tell you, I learned. I learned that the fanaticism and dogmatism that we now talk about on the left with the wokies, it exists anywhere and it's a personal trait. Thomas describes it as soul loss. Yeah, that's right. That's right. They are soulless ones who engage with the free man and the land thing. There are three types who engage with it. There are the cynical ones who are using it to advance themselves. There are the soulless ones who just get caught up in it. And then there are the fanatics who actually believe in it. The latter group is the smallest because anybody with the titter of intelligence or literacy can see that it is doomed to fail from the outset. But they do it anyway. And that's, I think, what happened. I mean, I don't know for sure, but just talking to people, I think what happened in Strokestown was that the latter, somebody who actually believed in it, latched on to the family in Strokestown and caused them to lose everything. Looking at the paperwork from Strokestown, and I've seen some of it, I've seen bits and pieces of it, it's appalling. It's tragic. I'm not joking when I say that. It's tragic, because those people were latched on to by false advice, by people who are, whether they were aware of it or not, are doing an evil. But Irish Water is the same as Tusla and is the same as this spanking new lovely land development agency. It's a private company, and actually the Irish people, it was a crowning moment for the Irish people how we did take on Irish Water, and people asked this most relevant of questions. Is the long-term agenda with Irish Water the privatisation and sale of our water to commercial interests, either at home or abroad? Is that part of the agenda? Obviously it was. They haven't done it yet, so we obstructed them. At least we delayed them. This is the same thing with the Land Development Agency. It's another Irish Water, and this is why people now need to listen to my video today and need to start asking the questions about what this Land Development Agency is and what its agenda is. And here's the thing. Look into the statute, look into the regulations, look into how the Land Development Agency has been set up, and ask yourself, what does it not say that they are not allowed to do? What does it not say that they are not allowed to do? If it does not say that they are not allowed to then sell all of this state land on to private commercial interests, that means that they are allowed to do it. And that means that sooner or later they will. So, all of our land that we own is going to be given away to private commercial interests. This is what happened in Rossport. This is what happened with our resources. They did that with our resources, but now we're wise to that, or at least I'm wise to that. At the time I wasn't watching what happened. I think it all began in the 70s and I was only a little boy anyway. So we must learn the lessons from the way that these people gave away our state assets, unlike Norway where everybody's getting a dividend. From our natural resources, they were stolen by the politicians. Oh, but Simon's playing a blinder and Leo's a lurge. Yeah. And Mary Coughlin, that half-wit in Donegal, that foul-mouthed, incompetent, ugly half-wit in Donegal. That's the ugliness from years of incest, generations of incest, with Mary Coughlin. A pig, Mary Coughlin is. As I put up a meme on Facebook saying, and I showed Brian Cowan and Mary Coughlin having sex, and I said, you see, David Cameron wasn't the only one to have sex with a pig. I used other wording. It's these beasts who've stolen our resources, like the oil and gas off Bellnaboy. And now they've just decided we're not going to do turf in this country anymore because Eamon Ryan doesn't like it. It's because you tolerate it, but it's also because the mainstream media won't actually tell you what's going on. It's us out here, me here in my microphone at my desk. It's the likes of us who are telling you what's happening here. It's not, don't expect the Bros and RTE to do it, or the Irish Times, the cat ladies in the Irish Times. After the third glass of wine, sure, they're good for nothing. The box set of, that box set of Sex and the City isn't going to watch itself. So no, don't expect them to tell you what's going on here. And how, once again, with this Land Development Agency, once again, we're watching how our resources, whether it's water, which Ireland has an abundance of, whether it's natural gas and oil off the west coast, or whether in this case it's spare public property. Why can't the spare public property just be given, maybe for €1,000 to say, peppercorn price, so that a transaction is done that's legally binding, given to local authorities? There you go. There's spare land up at the railway station, or there's spare land over wherever. The old bus station or what have you. There you go. We own that, but we're going to sell it to you for €1,000 there. Build your corporation housing there. No. What they've done instead is they're creating this. They're complicating the procedure deliberately. This is the psychopathic thing. And, they've the Land Development Agency, and they spent $250,000 getting a logo for it, and it has huge offices, 5-storey buildings in Stephen's Green, and da-da-da-da-da. That's how they confuse people. So this time now we've got to make sure they don't. They don't get away with this thing with the Land Development Agency. We've got to fight them on that. We do it by doing what I'm doing now. Leaflet drops, ads in newspapers, putting up websites that aren't written by tinfoil hatters. This is serious now. That is the theft of our public land, in the same way that they got away to an extent with the theft of our natural resources. All that would take would be a nationalisation bill in the Oireachtas. End of that. You know, after Labour took over in Britain, they nationalised many industries and resources in Great Britain, and they all fell apart then. But it doesn't have to be that way. The reason why so many of those nationalised industries in Britain fell apart is because the psychopaths and the trade unions got their talons into them. But natural resources, water, turf, coal, gas, oil, they should be nationalised and then operated efficiently, you know, the way the Norwegians do it.